Hello, everyone. We will be getting started. My name is Grima Sharma. I am the co-director of Reflections Projections. I will be facilitating this talk. So, hello. Thank you for coming today. We will be doing CS education from the industry perspective and the academic perspective. So, would you guys like to take a time to introduce yourselves and then hand the mic down?
Sure. I am Shravan Goli. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Coursera. And Coursera has, with University of Illinois, has a long-standing relationship. So, really excited to be here and share some perspective. I'm not sure what she's going to throw at me, but I'm looking forward to it.
Hello. So most of you know me, Lawrence Angrave. I'm a teaching professor here. You probably know me through a system programming course, 241, now renamed to 341. I've been here since 2006. I've been involved with Coursera at the early days. But I guess I have a kind of fundamental love of teaching computer science and seeing people thrive and thinking about how we can change the world to be a better place.
Okay, so how this is going to work is we were going to be sending 3 main topics about CS education. Then we'll be opening it up to audience for questions. We will be most likely taking 2 bears, 2 questions. And then we'll be wrapping up the discussion with a brief Q&A session. For the sake of everyone, please refrain from asking about any empty questions and please refrain from asking about any industry-related questions. So with that, we are going to first talk about education in the post-pandemic world. So as many of you are aware, COVID is becoming less and less of a concern. So we're all currently in person in an environment. RP is in person after so many years hosting events. So I guess with that, a lot of us have taken hybrid education. A lot of us have taken like online education, online fall semesters. So I guess for both of you, how do you guys view education now in the post-pandemic world? Like, how would you define education? How has it changed? How has it shifted?
All right, so that's pretty broad and big topic. But I think the way I think about this is fundamentally what is driving the world today. And I think that is basically automation and digitalization. And what pandemic has done is really accelerated the trends in both digitalization and automation. And what do we mean by that? About 100 million jobs are emerging in the digital space in the next 3 years, according to one Microsoft data point. And those are in like cybersecurity, software engineering, data analysis, cloud, and mobile, and all so on and so forth. So I think what the world needs is, in terms of supply, is people who have these skills, in essence. And the other thing I think the pandemic has done is the remote. And so the acceptance of remote learning, as well as remote.
Oh, it might have accidentally switched off. You might have to, is it red on the top? Oh, you might have accidentally switched off. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, turn on our microphone, so we will have to project. See us, everyone.
Okay, so I'll speak loud. So the second trend that is really driving is online remote both from the education learning standpoint. I hear like a lot of the courses are still like you sit in your dorm and use Zoom to kind of get through the course, which is fine. But the work environment also changed to remote.
So, for example, Coursera is what we call as a remote first company, meaning that you don't actually have to come to a specific office location. If you want to, you can come. If you don't want to, you can work from home. And so that's, I think, kind of creating an opportunity for anyone anywhere in the world. And so we often call it Coursera. Talent is equally distributed anywhere in the world, but the opportunity is not. And that's why we exist, to kind of really create the opportunity for anyone anywhere in the world.
And so, so my view is, I think, as bad as pandemic has been to the world, I think it has significantly accelerated the adoption of both online education, online learning as a mechanism, as well as remote. And these 2 things combined forces are going to really change the shape of the world that we're going to live in for the next, whatever number of years.
Okay, so I think the pandemic has done several things. One is that I was looking at kind of universal design for learning and this idea that there should be multiple pathways for learning. And so that meant some people wanted to go to lectures, some people wanted to read a book, some people wanted to watch a video, or some people wanted to do these things at different times, right? The idea that we all just want to learn one way. So I think kind of Coursera pioneered some of these ideas many years ago. But suddenly it took us by all of us by storm to say, oh, we have to rethink about how people learn and how to do assessments. And there were good and bad versions of that. I mean, we had to move quickly, of course, back in 2020. There have been some success stories. I think one of the success stories has been good captioning about things. So some realization that if we want to reach all people, it's actually useful to have well-captioned videos and equivalent videos and equivalent resources. Now, I'm biased in this because I actually study this, and I have students that help me kind of create software to do some of this stuff. Like we're looking at how to make books from videos, for example. But beyond that, the ability for people to kind of engage in content has, I think, improved. But we're in danger of losing some of that now. We're in danger of going back to the old ways, and then only the old ways. So I think it's important for students to speak up, to say, no, I want all of these ways to engage with material. However, we also lost some things during the pandemic. We also lost some of those social interactions. And as much as I like being able to find content at any time, say whether it's on Coursera or YouTube or my own videos, etc., at some point, I want to see more from the world than just this. Right? I used to do it's like, oh, I didn't recognize you. They want to square around your head. So I want to re-engage with people, and I actually want to have kind of social experiences with people. And so I'm excited to actually have like in-person interactions again. So I think that's kind of part going forward is that, yes, it's great that I can engage with anybody in any time zone, but I also want to reach out and say hi to people as I walk past them and say, hey, how's it going? So as part of the post-pandemic world, I want to have both cakes. I want to eat both. And I want to sample things at different times. And so I think that's one of the joys of actually being here, is I can walk through Siebel again and see people, and I can walk to DCL or SIF and feel part of this wonderful community. So I don't know if that's a complete answer to your question.
No, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Shaping is actually really important. So audience, raise your hand if you are in a hybrid class this semester. Raise your hand if your class is fully remote or has remote options available. Raise your hand if your class is in person. So now we have all three options in the University of Illinois. And with that comes the idea of customization. So how many of you who are in person have the ability to not go to lecture with a hybrid option? So now people have the opportunity to shape their own education. So I guess shaping their education, especially in like a post-pandemic world, as we talked about, kind of segues into the idea. What do you think is like the best, like, are we shifting toward more of a connection-heavy education area? Or are we heading more towards everyone just staying in their rooms, ditching lecture, and just staying at home and doing their MPs in silence? So what do you think? Do you think we should stay more in a use online to our advantage? Or should we continue to take advantage of these resources and connections?
Oh, okay. I think that's an impossible question. Okay, where's my facts, right? Because I want to take both sides. I want to argue it myself. So just a quick aside, if you ever ask 50 faculty their opinion, you'll get 100 answers. So here's some thoughts on this. So look, the pandemic hasn't worked out great in some ways. But I talked about some of the positives, like multiple pathways to learning, etc. But I can also point out the fact that no, I mean, many of us kind of found it really, really hard to be stuck in a basement or stuck in our parents' house or stuck and only see the world through this kind of little box every day. And many people got depressed or felt like, oh, I can't continue with this. It was hard to do this for a whole semester. So no, it's not been a rosy success story all the time. And I think coming out of the pandemic world is, okay, an opportunity to not do just purely online again, I think is useful. And to find that physical connection, that physical meaning is actually really important. But at the end of the day, we're social animals. We're mammals as well. Like we need to find reasons to learn. We need to be inspired. And some of that can be through an inherent interest in the course, but some of it can be through talking to each other or enjoying the lecture experience or something, right? So finding those reconnections, I guess, is really, really important.
Yeah, sure. I think absolutely, you're absolutely right. I think there's a role for online, there's a role for in-person, and there's a role for sort of this hybrid model. The way I think about this is the access, ability to create a lot more access to the content and really kinds of things that you can learn when you think about online versus you have to restrict yourself to a classroom experience. So I think there's a place for both. And when I think about the access and what the online medium can actually benefit you for all, especially as you think about maybe graduating, maybe getting into the jobs, etc. A lot of it is being able to kind of demonstrate you have the theory and the knowledge, but also the ability to kind of apply this knowledge in real world environment, real world situations. What that means is like you really have to get a lot of practice in terms of the kinds of problems that you will end up at an employer. So we have what we call as guided projects as an example, which is basically a virtual machine that you get through a browser. And without downloading any software, any tool, you can learn any software in the world. So think of it as like, hey, you're in data space and you want to go into a data analyst job. And you're thinking about, I need to show that this particular company is using Tableau. It's in the job description, let's say. So now you want to be able to say, I want to be able to demonstrate that I can do data visualization using Tableau. How do you go about doing that? You cannot download Tableau. It's like an enterprise software. It's not easy. So this is what we did. We said we will kind of create this technology with virtual machines, so where anybody can just go open up their browser and go into this project called data visualization using Tableau, and they get a side-by-side experience. Somebody like you created the project, which is a step-by-step instruction of step 1, step 2, step 3, kind of how you do this, and it gets recorded. And the student, actually, the learner just gets the browser instance with a side-by-side. On one side, they can actually follow the instructions, and on the other side, they're actually doing the problem themselves. Tasks. And so what that means is that's like, okay, this is how you kind of really understand the concept, but then here's the data problem you can solve yourself to kind of show that you can build this report. So the idea here is for us, I think, how can you accelerate your learning? I think online can actually, and these mechanisms can give you the ability to connect to the real world, and you can accelerate what you learn in the classroom. So that's how I feel like, I think before that, people weren't very comfortable learning in the online environment. Now that you're very comfortable, I think points you have to think about is what makes sense in each of these scenarios and what is the purpose of each of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I would comment that we live in computer science, and that's possibly the fastest changing domain. So the idea that you graduate with an undergraduate degree and then you're done. No, I'm sorry, this is a steam train and it's not stopping, it's an express train. We're developing new ideas, we're building new levels of abstraction. I'd argue that probably computer science has more levels of abstraction than just about any other field. So we're always going to have to go back and learn new things. And today, of course, there's more ideas than we ever possibly have time to learn. And theoretical ideas tomorrow become, how do we apply these ideas to new problems, or to big problems in the world, whether it's like logistics of the food chain. As you know, we actually make plenty of food. The problem is getting to the right places. Or how do we kind of, approach other kind of equity issues? Or how do we invent new ways to construct bridges, whether it's in town or on Mars? So we've got there's always going to be big problems, big challenges. And as we build new levels of abstraction and new ways to do things, it's like a big fractal. Suddenly there's a whole new like jobs in this area that we didn't even have job specifications for before. And so blink and it will be a different world. And so I'll finish my little kind of soliloquy here with just look, we always overestimate how much change happens in 3 years, but we always underestimate how much change happens in 10.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, according to one report, 40% of the skills that exist today will be outdated by 2025. 40%. 60% of the skills will be outdated by 2050. So in the next 5 to 10 years, whatever you think 60% of it will be gone. And so that speaks to the rate of change. And I think technology, and you're sort of, I think, going through the generation where the rate of change in technology is rapidly outpacing the rate of ability for humans to learn. And so we call it like this learning curve with the technology curve. And the technology curve passed the rate of human learning curve a while back. And we think of it as like online as a medium to kind of help bend the human learning curve, which is accelerated, so you can actually catch up and keep pace with this. I mean, the thing is, there's about 85 million jobs that are going to be automated out in the next 3 years.
Okay, so let me pick a fight. So does that mean that all these people here that are taking their degrees are saying half their degree is worthless, that they should go and study philosophy and art instead? Is that what you're saying?
So definitely, I'm not saying your degrees are outdated or degrees are not needed. I think fundamentally degrees are not going to be enough, and part of it is it's not enough that you are done with learning. I think you went through the linear model of learning, which is like 22 years of learning, and then you get in a job, and a lot of times it was kind of a little bit more secure, and then you really didn't need to change the technology or the things that you're working on for a period of time. I think that time space is compressed quite a bit now. The other thing is we think of it as 1 billion people are expected to enter the workforce population over the course of the next 10 years. So how do you differentiate yourself in an environment like that, right? That means we have one of our values we call learn, change, grow. So the ability to have curiosity and the ability to continue your learning journey never stops. And that's not about taking all these hard exams necessarily, but a lot of it is about learning new technologies, new skills as you go along your work.
So I guess this actually segues perfectly well to our topic, but before we go to that. Actually, there are if people in the back, there are a few seats available. Please raise your hand if you have a seat next to you, and then people can just go. There are seats over there. People who are sitting, you can move. There's a few seats available. Sorry, but to continue on. So I'm glad you both are talking about education, industry, academia. Once again, for the audience, raise your hand if you're going into grad school potentially. Interested in grad school. Raise your hand if you're, continue raising your hand if you're interested in entering FAME or any job force, any single company. Keep raising your hand, everyone. Like if you're interested in either one. See, that's everyone. So I guess we're all here for school. We're all here for learning. We're all here from an academic perspective. And also on Coursera has academic classes, UIUC being one of them. Coursera also features certifications from Google, Meta, at least from the top of my head, those are the big ones, FANG companies, IBM. So I guess with an academic perspective and an industry perspective, what should me and my other college students learn? What will prepare me the most? What will prepare us the most? If you're talking about jobs being automated, does that mean what should we do to best be prepared for the world? Because we're heading into a world with the macroeconomic situations being a bit different, a bit difficult. How do we get prepared for that? Should we pick to take certification online, or should we focus more on our classes on here? Should I care more about my 374 midterm, or should I just go straight to doing leak code? What should me and my students do? What should we do as students to make sure that we can succeed in the long term? So I guess this is the discourse for both of you.
Sure, I can. Go ahead. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to give a surprise answer. I'm going to say the answer to all of your troubles and all of your worries, all of your stress is simple. It's one word: passion. Just need passion. And so what I mean by that is don't stress so much. Don't worry about that 1 billion people are going to outcompete you and do something. Is that I want to spread some good news here, which is that hey, you're one of the top universities and you're surrounded by some top people that are going to support. I'm not just talking about the faculty and staff. I'm talking about each other. It's fantastic being here. That everybody has ups and downs, and when you're down, guess what? There's other students to turn to, and don't forget that you're part of this fantastic community here. And the second comment, I looked at that. I've got grey hair. It's worse than that. It's my hair. Don't get old, by the way. It's not recommended. So anyway, what I want to point out. Look, the economy has ups and downs. It happens, right? And sometimes life isn't quite as fair and as easy as you'd like. Good news, it passes. Or good news, it's often a short-term thing. Okay, you didn't get that stellar job you really wanted to, say, a company X, Y. That's okay. Not everything happens perfectly. That's okay. So how do you navigate all this? And I'm going to just suggest, find your passion and maybe it's different things. Maybe it's a course over there. Maybe it's a bit of lead code over there. Like maybe it's growing flowers. That's okay. Like, but the reason I'm concentrating on passion is because that will propel you through life. That will propel you through taking a course which lasts 16 weeks because you want, right? And you decided to take 16 credits. Why? Right? Or take 341 and something else, right? So you need to find that passion in order to make it work for you. And the last thing is in that sentence, in that idea of passion, is that you will then go and explore things which will make you unique, and then make you discover things which are actually that you want to do in your time.
I think very well said. No, it's entirely up to you. What do you want to do with the 371 return? I wouldn't recommend.
It's in an hour, so.
Right? Because as I think about my kids, grades are important. But at the end of the day, grades are not everything. I do think the sort of the knowledge you're gaining, but the experience you're going to gain out of being on a campus like this is what is going to set you up for success down the road. We often think of hard skills and soft skills. The soft skills are around like collaboration, presentation, communication, leadership. That stuff is not easy to get online. That stuff is like when you're working together in teams and projects, or in sports and activities that you're doing together. So, and we think about a lot of, like, I think about engineering. I was a CS graduate, bachelor's computer science, master's computer science, and then I did an MBA. It's like too much education at some point. But I think of like, engineering is like very systems thinking, very structured thinking. You're just like so zoomed in into trying to solve the problems. But what you miss out is like really sort of this, how do you circle yourself with all these other aspects of the individual personality? And that's where I think if you want to spend some time thinking about how do you differentiate yourself, it's like, what are your soft skills? Critical thinking is also a big part of that. So that's one side of the equation. The second side of the equation is, I would say, definitely, I'll read this learner story, and it takes 15 seconds of this, but I think this is a reflection of like where some of you are today, right? So this is Roshni, who was learning from Sri Lanka. I'm a software engineering graduate who completed the IBM Data Science Professional Certificate Program on Coursera. Of course, I have to market Coursera in order to increase my career opportunities in data science. So she is a software engineering graduate, and she did this IBM Data Science Professional Certificate. Now, what did she gain out of this? Not only I was able to learn various techniques through hands-on exercises, I've also become more confident. I think confidence comes from the practice. And that's what I think you're talking about passion. I think if you have passion, then you'll be committed to it, and then you'll spend time. And I've become more confident in making decisions and presenting insights to others. So that's part of the equation, like, you gain that. And then I've always dreamed of being a data scientist. And with Coursera, I've been able to achieve a solid foundation in this field. Online learning has enabled me to learn without limits. So what she said also, I'm now working to build a portfolio of projects related to data science using the skills that I learned through the certification program. It feels good knowing that as I approach my interviews, I will also have many tangible experiences to share with recruiters. And so that's the other thing, like when you think about employers, what they're looking for is some tangible proof that you can actually do the job, right? And so she says, I move towards the future with consistency and curiosity to research, learn, build, and share. And she goes on saying, I urge my fellow learners to stay consistent in working towards your goals. That's again speaks to your passion point. And then remember that helping others to step on the ladder of success while you climb is invaluable. So, helping others, mentoring, these are all sort of traits that will be valuable when you get into a workplace.
So we're going to actually open up questions to the audience. We're only going to be taking 2 questions. These are going to be rapid fire questions. When I mean rapid, like not the 5-minute lecture, basically. So anyone have questions? Okay, so wow, that's a lot of people. Cool. We're going to take these 2 questions. I'll take one from you over there. You want to say like your name, like if you feel comfortable, say your name and your grade, like what grade you're in, if you want to.
So name, major, grade.
Name, major, grade.
Okay. So my name is Christian Tovar. I am a civil engineering major, so not CS, and I am currently a junior. I wanted to ask For like group projects, would there be like a way of sort of like in the essence of preparing for job market stuff of would it be good to show that you have worked with students from other schools and sort of networking beyond just your initial group and sort of like how would that demonstrate?
That's a great question. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. I think, whether it's a group here, whether it's a group across the boundaries, I think there's an element of how diverse your group is. I think when you think about workplaces, the model of workplaces are very diverse today. And so kind of having the ability to kind of engage with a diverse set of individuals is always helpful. And so if you can show that. I think the clarity of the problem and the clarity of like the role of each of the teammates or something that needs to be clear. Like, what role did you play? What did you contribute? And what was the team's goal? And what did the team accomplish, etc. So I think that's kind of the way to think about it. The complexity of the problem would be an interesting aspect of it. Like, how complex was it? How complex was the sort of the overall solution? And what did you learn? I think we always look for like, what are your key learnings? What are your key insights? It's not just about like, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. What did you learn out of it? And how would you do it differently if you were to redo it, like as an example? So these are like standard interview questions you probably get.
Thank you.
So studies have shown that more diverse teams come up with more interesting, more imaginative, more broad, more visual, more rigorous, more robust, etc. solutions, right? So you're going to be working with people that are not like you in the future. And it's actually really, really useful to be able to kind of take technical ideas and convert them into something that a non-CS person doesn't understand. Or to be able to take a business idea and convert it back into like some CS requirements. So being able to kind of cross domains, really, 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 really important skill. And being able to ask insightful questions. Being able to listen as well. It's like, I think you said, I think, and being able to kind of double check and gain insight into what the problem really is, as opposed to what the problem you think it is. And so these are all like really important soft skills. But I'm also going to add another dimension to the products, the project side, is that as an employer, you don't want to hear that, oh yeah, I did really well at the Malacca. Yeah, so did that person and that person and that. Like, is that you may feel a lot of pride in doing that because it was a big moment in your life, right? Then finally understood pointers or something. But actually, the part where you come alive in an interview is when you start talking about that project you did. That not the MP or the assignment that was so prescribed that every step was well set in stone already before you started. No, it was an open-ended project which actually led to something. And then you get excited, your eyes perk up, you become animated. That's the moment someone says, I want this person. That's the time. So yeah, get involved with projects and things which are not like prescribed in assignments, and you'll have those life experiences all ready to go when you're in an interview situation.
Okay, one more question. Do you guys want to pick someone?
You were talking a lot about passion, how don't really worry about don't really worry about like having to stand out among a billion people. Focus on your passion, find your niche, and that's how you're going to shine through. But I think we have a lot of really great students here. We have a lot of great resources. But I think the trouble that a lot of students find is, how do I find my passion? There's so many different things to explore. You probably don't even have all the time to explore all of that in depth. So like, how do you go about exploring that? What is the best way to really find passion?
Okay, you're so lucky. So that's not unfair, right? Well, what I mean is that here we are, there's like more 400 level courses than you could possibly ever take. There's more Coursera courses than you could possibly ever take, right? And this is a problem, right? And you don't have enough time because you're so busy working on like the Malacca or whatever, like or so busy working on getting ready for your exam. What, 20 minutes?
No, 1 hour.
Okay.
I know 1 hour.
Okay, whatever. So I would say, look, we don't need to solve everything today. That it's okay to say, I'm not sure what my passions are, and maybe I'll discover some today. Maybe I'll discover some new ones next year. I will say that you will change. Your interests will change. And it's that's okay and that's normal. And so if you can't discover all of your passions today, that's okay. You can take things which you're not sure about. So if, for example, you say, I'm not sure if I'm interested in definitely I'm interested in subject A, well then don't study A, right? Study something you're less sure about. One trick I found that works quite well is to fail fast. It's a lot better to have a low investment, both in terms of time and money, to discover like, oh, it turns out that, yeah, I thought I was interested in, say, I don't know, embedded computer science or graphics. And I took, 2 weeks, a two-week course, or I spent a weekend looking at Wikipedia pages and trying to invent my own game engine or something, right? And I discovered that I loved it, discovered that I hated it. Great, at least you have an opinion. So I would say, look for ways to succeed or fail by taking little deep dives. But don't stress about it. Okay, maybe something will come along, like your friend will say, oh, I'm going to do this. It's like, okay, great, that sounds like fun, right? So try to find playful and exploratory ways to discover things, rather than worrying that you can't do everything all in one day.
Yeah, I just add to that quickly. I would say, obviously, when I was doing this years ago, we didn't have this choice of online learning or access to a lot of content online. So what I see often on Coursera is people trying a lot of things. They don't complete many courses, they don't complete. So they'll just try one lesson, one module. You will kind of get a sense for like, hey, this is the direction I want. We were talking about a number of skills and jobs that are emerging for especially the CS graduates, all the way from data to software engineering to design to project management, et cetera. So you will find your passion over time, but also you can explore and try it. For myself personally, I was a software engineer when I started at Microsoft, like 2 years later, I didn't want to code because this was the rate of like, I just felt like, oh shit, like every 2 years I have to learn a new coding language. This is not going to work for me. And I also said, like, maybe I'll start a company on my own at some point in my life. So I want to go into more understanding the customers and the customer side of it. That's what started my product management journey. And then I started like really spending a lot of time. I really enjoyed talking to customers, doing a lot of customer interviews and capturing a lot of sort of those information on like what problems customers actually have. What is the sort of the products and software should actually solve what problems? How do I structure that? After I did that, I was just like, well, okay, this is great. I've now gotten good at like creating value for the customers, but actually, how do I sell this back to them? So that's when I became a marketer, product marketing. So it's kind of a really good, and every step of the way was very hard. Every step of the way I was told I should go back to the previous step. I almost pretty much failed in doing that for the first 6 to 12 months of it. Found great mentors along the way that kind of helped me, but it's going to be hard when you transition. But ultimately, here I am, like I've been a president, I've been a CEO, I'm a product officer. It's been great, ultimately. That investment paid off significantly over time. So you will not know on day one, but you'll figure it out.
Sorry. We're going to, for the sake of time, we're going to be asking one question. We're going to merge those topics together, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. There's no more bears left, FYI. But the last question is about diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. So technology as a whole is it's starting to become more diverse. Currently, the University of Illinois has around a high 20s, early 30% for women in computer science and for women in computer science plus X majors. And especially in technology and in general in engineering, it's starting to become a little bit more, like more women are starting to become more and more involved. A lot of people from underrepresented communities are also becoming more and more involved. And I know this sounds weird that I'm asking two men about this as well, who are the majority, but in both of your perspectives, from an industry and academic perspective, how can we promote a more diverse and inclusive environment for women, for underrepresented communities, and how do we work on doing that at the university level? And it's like starting off as college students, when we enter the job force, like how do we make sure that like we're promoting an inclusive community for all of our students?
I can start. I mean, I'll give you two perspectives. One as somebody who manages a large team and recruits and hires people, and there's something which is more from a Coursera perspective. I think fundamentally, to your point, you made the point, it's proven research that diversity actually makes your products and experiences better for your customers. And today, as you think about, like, most companies are global. As you go into any companies, most of them are kind of designing products and services for a large global customer base. And so it is actually imperative, like every company takes this into account. Like if you don't have sort of a diverse employee base, then you're only building products for one segment of the population. So it never is going to work. So that's number one. Number two, you have to actually have very deliberate practices to improve the diversity of workplace. And what do I mean by that? So we think of how we recruit people. So we're looking at the whole recruitment pipeline, the funnel, and we have data points that we have to hit. Like for every position, you got to have X number of, sort of diverse profiles to be reviewed at each stage of that. And then especially as we get into more and more leadership roles, we actually kind of require, like, you got to have 24% of URG, like, have to be interviewed, qualified at the final stage. And so if you don't do that, like in the prior years, we always be interested, but you needed to change the system of recruiting itself to kind of actually improve the composition. So that's one side. The other side is, as I think about how Coursera is creating opportunity for diverse populations, I think we talked about, you mentioned those professional certificates. The industry is taking a very active role with Coursera in creating these professional certificates, which are tied to very specific entry-level jobs. And so we have about 20 plus careers, about 32 professional certificates that are being created by Google, IBM, Amazon, Microsoft of the world that are tied to very specific jobs. Like, for example, Google IT professional certificate, Google UX design certificate. And if you go through that, it takes about 3 to 6 months. You're now qualified for the entry-level job for an IT professional. And we have seen a number of people, thousands of people going through these certificates and then getting employed. The second piece is when I think about diversity, and actually when we look at the composition of the people that are accessing these certificates, it's amazing. Like, it kind of really opened the doors for both women as well as underrepresented groups, because it's cheap. It costs $49 a month to kind of get on with this program, right? The other piece we call about today is called role of stackability. Stackability is sort of this combination of industry and universities coming together to give credit for industry taught courses, content, education as part of their core curriculum. And this is where I think the innovation is going to happen, sort of the next generation of education, where industry and academia are combining their strengths in kind of bringing the real value to the individuals. And so what we're doing is, if you take some of these professional certificates, you can also apply towards credit for undergrad programs. So University of London has Bachelor's Computer Science on Coursera. 33% of University of London bachelor students have taken a Google IT certificate and they get credit towards that program. And so this is, we call it like stackable access pathways. Now, clearly you're here, so you're in a different place, but I think the whole world needs to be lifted if we want to actually change. To your point, like the call to action, you gotta help the individuals who are less privileged and don't have access to this to be able to get there.
Okay. We have a lot left to do. Right. We've got an awful lot to do, actually. So I see a lot of efforts around campus, a lot of efforts by faculty. This is clearly an issue that a lot of people care about, including myself. And I can point to some success stories, and I can point to things which have not gone so great. And I can point to initiatives, and I can point to programs and projects, etc. So first of all, I'm very happy that this university takes us seriously. And everything from kind of individual things like stuff that I'm trying to do with accessibility and disability and accommodations and stuff, through to like the Idea Institute here, which is kind of sponsoring projects. But I want to point out that the number of people involved with this is you could measure like in hundreds, right? Versus I've got 1,000 students, right, inside the CS program. So I'm going to throw some of the responsibility on you to say, what world do you want to live in?
how can you make a difference here? Now, part of that can be, oh, we should be complaining about stuff. Okay, we're very good at complaining about stuff, right? Yes, so first of all, have a voice. When things don't work for you, when things should be better, try to be an agent of change. And maybe try to be an agent of change with others. But I think part of the solution is to actually celebrate some successes. So when you see courses which work really well for you, or really well work for in an unexpected way for a broader diversity of people, perhaps it's more inclusive. Perhaps, for example, there's new ways for people who are deaf and hard of hearing to work with others, or perhaps you felt that even though you weren't considered a kind of a majority student, that actually this course was great. Celebrate that, because that is how we're going to kind of get these ideas surrounded. If we're always complaining about stuff, eventually people are like, oh God, we're going to have to change something. It's like, yes, it will happen, but I don't think it will happen as fast as actually say, yes, this was great over here. Can't we replicate this? I mean, and I think right now, UIUC, we're so happy to have people like Nancy to be able to say, yes, we are making a change here. But it's not just an inclusive internal club as well. It's about, well, what's happening in your high schools? What does the pipe look like, in terms of the students applying here and the students graduating here? And what does it look like when people think about, oh, do I want to become a university professor? Well, what does that look like? Have we started to lose people already? So we've got a lot of work to do, like all of these stages. And I'm going to say that's your homework, right? Is be a change so that in 10 years' time, we can say, I remember when it was like this, right? And instead we've moved the needle.
Thank you. That's actually a really good answer from both of you. I'm like personally very interested in this as well, so that's why I'm very excited for this question. So with that, we are opening it up to Q&A. If anyone has questions, please raise your hand and we can answer them. Oh wow, that's a lot. Okay, for the sake of time,
We'll
please keep them short,
keep it short.
because we do have 8 minutes left.
Okay, right.
So
Rapid fire.
okay, we're going to go from the back all the way down. So person in the back, you first.
It's more about the stuff, but should in the future university sort of like, so if you have like a course like data structures and algorithms, should the university move on from teaching languages, primitive languages like C and start moving on to like C++, Go, or those types of stuff?
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll try to answer that quickly and you can take a different question. Right, so yes, maybe no. Let's see, it's a correct answer to all that. Like in terms of primitive language, so part of the challenge of university education is to give you a good understanding of like what the machine model is, for example, right? And so taking a language like C is pretty good because we don't want to necessarily program in assembly all the time, but we do want to understand a good idea of like what the program and process model is. Will you ever see C again? Maybe not. But guess what? You're going to be say using JavaScript and Rust and all these other programs which are very much C-like, except they do a lot of hand-holding for you already because, for example, they look after memory for you. We can argue about whether Rust should be replaced with C and whether perhaps we should do more JavaScript and asynchronous stuff. Sure, but in some ways, these are like local optimal problems that we've got to figure out. And besides, you're always going to be learning new languages in the future. So maybe we should be kind of reducing you down to like 8-week terms so that you can get to see all languages that you think are important. But I don't have a short answer to you. It's like yes, no, and maybe. Okay, next question.
We're gonna go red shirt. Sorry, we're gonna go by color shirts right now. Red shirt over there, and then we're gonna go. So you go next.
Okay, 2 questions. So for you here, are you going to use Whisper, the new OpenAI thing for for your project? And for you, how are you guys going to be using a lot of these large language models in Coursera to create content, new classes, and how you guys are thinking about this new technology?
Sure. Mostly when we think of it as we have technology called Coursera Labs, which essentially builds a lot of lab environments. For example, Jupyter notebooks for large data science data set problems to be solved. So our goal is to continue to enable a lot of sort of these labs technologies. So you can do a lot of the hands-on in virtual environments. And then there's the whole notion of now we saw VR, AR, multi-work, all that stuff that's coming up. we're working with the University of Michigan on, and they have this XR lab, and they call it like extended reality, which doesn't require glasses and any of the equipment to actually build content that can go into 3D modeling. And so we think of it as a platform. We don't necessarily have to build all the technologies ourselves, but a platform that is able to kind of take multiple technologies and be able to plug and build.
Okay, so as some of you know, I help on Class Transcribe, which is this idea of being able to take lectures and turn them into formats and have accurate captions and crowdsourcing captions and all that good stuff. Right, Whisper is a new speech-to-text model. Yes, I would love to, if you want to be the student that actually wants to play with Whisper, come and talk to me afterwards. The other thing we're doing actually is to do OCR on the content and other things to actually do phrase hinting. So if we know, for example, it's a biology lesson, we should be able to give a hint to the speech-to-text system that, hey, there might be a whole lot of kind of biology-based words in this. So yeah, we're always looking for interesting ways to improve the accuracy.
One last question, that was actually from you over there.
So I'm wondering, so currently I'm a freshman, I'm looking to do research and internship. I was just wondering what exactly is the difference between the research and or academia and the industry. I guess specifically like for research, like how you actually make a living and fund your science.
Good question, good question. I just went to both of you.
I warned you that I'd be doing my papers.
Well, look, I mean, freshmen, it's pretty hard to get internships, I believe, but I think here's how I think about it. Today, you have freelance economy that is available. So if you take Fiverr, I've seen my son kind of do stuff on Fiverr. I don't know what he does, but he kind of actually hires consultants from Fiverr to do some bots work for his Discord bot service. He's 15 years old. So I don't know what he does other than that, but my point is, like, you have freelance platforms where you can actually offer your experience to kind of build and kind of earn while you want to spend time on research. There are other virtual internship sites like the forage.com is another one, which essentially have virtual intern simulations, which are sponsored by companies. And so that's another way that you can gain experience.
So I'll try and answer your question with, like, professors hate this one simple trick. They have office hours, right? So find out when a professor has his office hours for his or her course and go, right? And it doesn't matter if you're in the course or not. And you can say, hey, I'm interested in doing something. And then this other simple trick is called independent study credit. So you can say, oh, I'd like to learn about this. And I'm not sure where I'm going to get to, but there's technology I want to play with or explore. You can get credit for that. And that potentially can lead you in a path towards research. It can lead you in a path towards discovering something which maybe interests you. And so kind of use it as a way to do something very different from the structured part of your course experience.
Oh,
Sorry.
Come talk to us after.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, for the sake of time. But to answer your question about, you can always email professors too. Another secret.